Old, I wrote the first story I've ever written. And the story was about a man who wanted to go try to cooperate, try to blend cultures, right? And try to work together. And what's amazing about today is of all the cities in the entire world, the city I wrote that story about was Da Nang, Vietnam. So I studied this city, never been here, wrote a story about an American coming here to try to cooperate. And what's amazing for me today, all these years later, is today for me, that dream just came true. We are here together. We have Switzerland in the house, obviously the United States. We have Australia in the house. We have Ireland in the house. We have cooperation from all over, and we're all here to do one thing together. So for me, in my personal diary, this is a big day for me. Thank you guys very much for having me. This has way too many buttons. Which one makes it go? Is it that I just don't want to turn it off? That one? See, it's not as easy as it looks. All right. Which one was that? Okay. All right. So if you were to come to my office today, that is written on the wall. That is the reason that I do everything that I do. That's the reason that I get up every day, because I personally believe that to make the world a better place, the kind of armies we need are armies of entrepreneurs. That's literally why I flew 30 hours to be here with you guys today, because I believe this to be very, very true. We need to create as many entrepreneurs as we can, and we need to build as much support, funding, mentorship, education, infrastructure, events like this, as we can to help those entrepreneurs succeed. Oop. Now, okay. This is what's really, really important about entrepreneurship. I think, and I'm going to blame the United States, I think the United States gave entrepreneurship a bad name. And let me tell you why. Because our media is fascinated with the money, right? The Facebook movie, which is the only movie about entrepreneurship, was about some young people who wanted to be billionaires. That is the wrong message. The world's best entrepreneurs never wake up in the morning thinking about money. The world's best entrepreneurs are people that see the world the way it is today, but then they can close their eyes and see the way it should be. And those entrepreneurs can't sleep until they take the world from how it is to how it should be. That's entrepreneurship. It's the ability to see a different future than the present you have, and then basically to pick up tools and make it. Entrepreneurs say, I am going to create that future. As a matter of fact, that is the whole beauty of entrepreneurship. I don't think entrepreneurship's a job. I think it's a privilege. When my friends say, I got to go to work tomorrow, I say, really? Because I get to go to work tomorrow. I can't wait for Sunday night when some of my friends get sad because Monday they have to go back to work. And Sunday night, I'm excited because there's nothing I'd rather be doing than trying to change the world for the better as an entrepreneur. It's a privilege for us to get to do that. And the entrepreneurs that see a better future are the ones that build it. Every single day, in fact, we just came from Ho Chi Minh City where we were doing entrepreneurship events the last few days. And everywhere I go, I hear people bring me ideas. And here's the problem. Ideas are great, but everybody has an idea. And you guys, you all know that. You're sitting with friends or family at dinner, and one of your friends is saying, no, this time I'm really going to do it, right? But then in the morning, they wake up and they go back to their same job and they don't do anything. Everybody has an idea. Very, very few people actually execute, actually turn their idea into something. Why? Because it's hard. Of course it's hard. Nothing worth doing is easy. It wouldn't be worth doing then. Execution is the most important thing. There is another sign that's on the wall of my office as well, and it says that. Outside my door, it says, ideas are welcome here, but execution is worshipped. Execution is the details. It's turning an idea into reality. It's making your vision actually become a business, and sometimes a profitable business. It's seeing people that might need food or help and figuring out a way to get it to them. So why are we all in this room? Because execution is hard and entrepreneurs need all the help they can get. Why do we need to have an ecosystem? We need to make sure they succeed. Entrepreneurs are doing important work, and they can't do it alone. We have to help them do it. When I was first started as an entrepreneur, I did not even know that word, and entrepreneurship was not popular. In fact, I will tell you, when people said, "What do you do?" and I said, "I'm an entrepreneur," people thought I was on the black market. They said, "Oh, so you can't tell me what you sell?" I said, "I don't do anything illegal." And they said, "Sure." And then other people, when I said, "I'm an entrepreneur," they said, "Why, you just can't get a job?" And I said, "This is my job." And they said, "Sure." Entrepreneurship started as a bad attitude. It's people that nobody would hire, and that was never true. This is a choice and a job to be an entrepreneur, but we need help doing it. And I never had that help when it was my turn. I want to just share with you the fact that, sometimes people will say things like this to me. They'll say, "Jeff, it's easier for you. As an entrepreneur, I've been very blessed. I've been involved in 8 different companies, and our companies created billions of dollars." So people say, "It's easy for you because you're in America." And I'm going to tell you, that is just an excuse that real entrepreneurs never make, okay? And let me explain why. Especially in the West, and I will admit being guilty to this too, a lot of people think the West must be smarter because where are all the great companies, right? They think Google, Apple, all these companies that came out of the US, they must be doing something better. That was never true, right? So I've been on the last 5 years, I've been on a world tour of entrepreneurship. I'll talk about that in a minute. And I've been visiting probably 80 different countries. And here's the truth. The ideas of a Vietnamese entrepreneur, even in a small village, even someone that has no electricity, are just as good as the ideas of a Silicon Valley entrepreneur at Stanford. Okay, here's the difference. Then people say, then why didn't they create those companies in Vietnam? Because they never had the tools. The ideas here were always as good. I've been speaking to many Vietnamese entrepreneurs this week. Your people are just as smart. Your ideas are just as good. The only difference is you never had tools. That would be like if 2 people wanted to build a house and one of them had wood and hammer and nails and the other one had nothing. They both have the same idea for the house, but only one can build it. Here's the good news. The world has changed now, and the tools are available to everybody. So where do we expect to see some of the world's next great companies coming from? Right here. Because now everybody can access the tool set. Let me tell you a little story that really made me explore this. I was building companies, and like I said, we were very blessed. Our companies did well, and we made lots of money, which was never my driver. I didn't wake up doing that, but we were creating value, and we were getting paid. When I was in my 20s, we sold a company for many millions of dollars. And that is what the world says is success, but it's not. And what happened is, one day I was walking down the street, and I saw that on a sign in a window. And I looked all around because I thought somebody was playing a joke with me. Who put that there? And what the sign said was, "You may be successful, but do you matter?" And I thought to myself, I have done many things to create success, but nothing that actually matters. Making money for yourself might be success, but using that money or your tools to make the lives of other people better, that's what matters. So I quit doing companies. I was a CEO since I was 24. And the day I saw that sign, and I still don't know how it got there, I said, I'm done with this. And now I want to dedicate my time to trying to do something that matters. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. So I started traveling around the world to figure out exactly what we are doing here today. How do we help more people become entrepreneurs? How do we help them become successful? And how do we let the people of Vietnam create the future of Vietnam? All we have to do is give them the tools, and they will do it themselves. Of course, we will always work with the government, but instead of asking government to do everything for us, we can do it ourselves, and they can help us do it. That's what entrepreneurs do. That's what matters at the end. So I took off. I will tell you guys just very quickly. I made a commitment to giving back because all the good things that happened to me in my life were because of entrepreneurship. So I made a commitment, and I said, I am going to give back by mentoring entrepreneurs. And in 2011, we had another successful company. We took it public on the stock exchange. I was wearing a suit back on Wall Street again, and all we were talking about was money. And I said, this doesn't matter. I'm not telling you money's not important. I'm telling you if that's all you do, that you didn't really make a difference in the world. So I quit then, and what I said was, for the year of 2012, I said, I am going to give back as a thank you to entrepreneurship, and for 1 year, I am going to do this experiment. I did not tell anybody. For 1 year, I am not going to say no to anybody that asked me for help. So if somebody in this room had called me and said, could you come to Da Nang to help me with something? My answer was yes, because that was my give back. So I knew that I would not be in the office. I would not make any money. I would not do any business deals, but I would have probably the most amazing experience of my life trying to help other people do the kinds of things we did. So I took off then, and I started getting calls from entrepreneurs around the world. That's what I set off on this tour that's been 5 years. 3 months ago, we did an event in Laos that had entrepreneurs from Vietnam, from Laos, from Myanmar, from Cambodia, some Thai entrepreneurs, and for some strange reason, the Australians showed up again. But we've been learning from entrepreneurs around the world on this tour that I've been going on. I forgot I put this in here. But what I've been trying to do is go to countries all over and sit down. You know, I was talking to our White House a couple years ago, and they were talking about global cooperation and entrepreneurship. And here's what I said. I said, the problem is, they said, what's the key to working together with other economies around the world? And I said, the key is you have to get dirty. And what I meant by that is you can't sit in your office in your country and figure out how to cooperate with Vietnam. You have to come here, and you have to sit with people, and you have to have meals with people, and you have to visit their homes. So that's what I've been doing, and that's why I came here. I want to tell you a quick story of good news about how exciting entrepreneurship is today. So when I was doing my year of yes, I got an email from a young man in West Africa. And he said, Mr. Hoffman, actually, the email said, Mr. Hoffman, I know you won't read this. And if you do, I know you won't answer. So that was the challenge. It was on. So he said, things are tough in the village of West Africa. And he said, and I have ideas, but I don't know what to do. Could you help? So I flew to this village. And I have to tell you, my expectation for innovation was low. Look at the house. The house is made out of mud. There's no electricity. There's no water. It's just a dirt floor. And I went to this village, and this young West African came to greet me. And he said, let me tell you my idea for a better, Senegal was his country. But just like entrepreneurs in this room have ideas for a better Vietnam. He said, let me tell you my idea for a better Senegal. And I had just given a speech at Stanford where I met Silicon Valley people. So I was wrong, but my expectations were low. What is this young entrepreneur in a house made of dirt going to come up with? And he started talking, and it was brilliant. His idea was better than anything I heard at Stanford or in California. So I said, hey, stop. And he said, okay. And I said, who told you this? This can't be your idea. And where did you learn these things? Because he works in the fields. In that part of Africa, if they don't grow food, they don't eat. So all day they have to go out and work in agriculture. So I said, you've been working in the fields. How would you possibly know this? And he said, Mr. Hoffman, I want to have a better life and a better West Africa. So every day after I work in the fields, I take a shower and I walk to the internet cafe. He said, and I take classes at Stanford and MIT on something called Coursera. He educates himself on free classes from all over the world. I said, that's amazing. Go on. So he kept going on his presentation. And then he was talking to me about his go-to-market strategy. but he was using words you don't learn in university. And I said, who taught you that? You did not learn that taking free classes. And I said, so how did you even know how to say those things? He said, because I want a better future for my country. After I work in the fields and after I take free classes online, he said, I go watch TED Talks. Why? Because anything you want to learn how to do, not only is there a TED Talk, but guess who gave it? Probably the world's leading expert on that thing. It's amazing how well educated you could become by yourself. He said, Mr. Hoffman, I found you because I watched your TED Talk, sent you an email, and now you're standing in Senegal. That could not even happen a few years ago. So he said, let me show you my investor presentation. And I said, this will be interesting. And he started showing it to me, and it was brilliant. I said, okay, this time you're caught. You did not write this presentation. He said, I did. I said, how did you learn how to write an investor presentation? He said, after I finish all those other things, he said, I go on a site called SlideShare, which posts the 10 best investor presentations anyone gave in the entire world every Friday. He said, I read all of those and figured out how to write a winning investor presentation. This young man, I will tell you now, today, let's see how many years later this is, 5 years later, not even, his company has offices in 7 West African nations, and he has 350 employees. This 19-year-old who's now only 24, and that's the size of his business. Last time I visited, he picked me up in a brand new BMW, and he had a suit on. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, you told me to play the part. He said, now I'm a big CEO, and I want to look respectable to big companies. There is no excuse anymore. The tools are available on the democracy of information. The internet is the democracy of information. Every entrepreneur can be trained today to create amazing things. But let's be clear, entrepreneurship is not the goal. It's just the tool. I see people come up to me and they say, Mr. Hoffman, I'm an entrepreneur now. And I said, why do you think that? And they say, well, I have an office, a name card, a logo, and a website. And I say, okay, you have everything but a good idea. And they say, I'm working on that. Don't be an entrepreneur for the sake of being an entrepreneur. The best entrepreneurs are just focused on making things better and solving problems. Being an entrepreneur is the tool set. So I'm going to tell you one more story. If you can see behind me, this is the pyramids. I was in Egypt. So this was after President Obama. I was supporting the White House in entrepreneurship. And President Obama gave a Cairo speech telling Egypt, post-revolution, we will help you rebuild Egypt. But then everybody decided that the best way to rebuild any country is armies of entrepreneurs. So I was the one they sent to go to Egypt to offer entrepreneurship. So I went. By the way, I'll tell you a quick non-related funny story. This was the day I thought I was going to die. Because, see that camel? I was standing here waiting for somebody. That camel swung, right after this photo, swung around so its nose was right in my face, and I opened my mouth to yell. Sorry, this is a horrible but true story. And the camel put its tongue in my mouth. And I started screaming, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And all the Egyptians were laughing. And I ran down to that car down there, and they had a bottle of hand sanitizer. I don't know what diseases camels have in their mouth, and it licked me. So I took the hand sanitizer, and I drank it in my mouth. And the person picked up the hand sanitizer and said, it says on the bottle, do not ingest this. And I said, I'm pretty sure it says that on the camel too. But I put that in my mouth. Obviously, I am still alive. So I went to Egypt to sell entrepreneurship. And I'm just going to tell you, this is what I felt like. I felt like a peddler. I was walking up and down the streets of Egypt saying, entrepreneurship, come and get some. Who wants entrepreneurship? And no one wanted any. And so I parked my cart. The Egyptians, this is what it felt like they were saying. Hey, if we're right in the middle of a revolution, could you call us back after dinner? And I felt stupid. So I put the cart aside, and I went to one young Egyptian girl, and I said, no one wants to be an entrepreneur. And she said, don't even know what that is. Isn't that somebody who tries to build a website for money? I said, no. And now I realize why people don't want to be an entrepreneur, because they think it's something different. And I said, well, can you tell me what you do want? And she said, come with me. We walked down to Tahrir Square. That is the square where the Egyptian revolution happened. And she pointed at the ground, just on the ground, and said, right here. And I said, right here, what? She said, right here, I held my brother in my arms as he bled to death on the night of the revolution. The soldiers shot him in the throat. And my heart stopped. And then she looked up at me from the ground and said, Mr. Hoffman, can I tell you my startup idea? And I said, can you give me a minute to catch my breath? I said, how do you go from that to this? And I said, I don't understand. And she said, you're right, you don't understand. She said, the entire reason we fought this revolution was for the right to design the future Egypt that our children will live in. That is no different here. Don't you want to design the Vietnam your kids will grow up in? You can. That's the power of entrepreneurship. So she started telling me what she wanted to do, what her idea was to make Egypt better for the future. And what I realized was, don't sell entrepreneurship. And I'm telling this to the ecosystem. If you go to the young people in the back of this room and say, who wants to be an entrepreneur? A lot of people will not say yes. The question you should ask is, who wants to design the future of Vietnam? And you'll get a lot more people that say, I want to be part of that. And you say, great, because we can do that with the tool set of entrepreneurship. When I got back to the US State Department, to Hillary Clinton's office, they said, what did you learn? And this is what I wrote on the wall. Entrepreneurship is the tool. It's the shovel you use to dig a path to a brighter future. It's the future that we care about. Entrepreneurship is just the shovel. And entrepreneurs are people who are not afraid to go out in the hot sun and dig. We just need to, when people ask me what I do now, this is what I do in life. Someone said, what's your job? I said, I'm a shovel salesman. My job is to go pass out shovels. The shovel is the skill set of entrepreneurship to as many people as we can in the world and teach them how to use it. That is why we are here today. I just want to tell you two more stories of how powerful entrepreneurship is. That's Peru. And I was in Peru the same way I'm here on this trip. And unfortunately, a lot of people live in houses that they make out of trash. And I met a young girl in Peru named Mariana. And in this part of Peru, and I'm sure there are similarities to parts of Vietnam, the poor people, if they have any money, they only send the boys to college and university. The girls don't get a chance. So this young girl said, that's not right. But she did what entrepreneurs do. They fix it to make a better country, a better future. So you know what she did? She taught herself online how to write code, how to be a programmer. And then she got an idea. Mariana goes up into these slums every day, and she interviews all the young South American girls. And she takes the smartest ones, and she comes down the mountain into the city, and she teaches them how to write code. She started squatting in an empty building with borrowed computers. You know what happens now? These young girls, in fact, I was just in Peru. That's Mariana with the glasses, and that's me with all the girls. We're doing their logo. These young girls, now, she teaches them to write code. They go online and they bid on internet website development jobs. Nobody on the internet knows that you're a teenager in Peru or a young person in Vietnam. They only judge the quality of your work. These girls make more money than their parents combined. These girls buy apartments in the city and get their parents out of the slums. It's amazing. Mariana is now doing that. We've been helping her. She's now doing this. She has 4 coding schools for girls. And these girls are all the lowest income girls. They walk 2.5 hours every day down the mountain and 2.5 hours back up to have a chance at a better life. I want to share one last thing about this with you. Her story, like the girl in, oh, by the way, the girl in Egypt, her company now helps 1 million Muslim women every year. So these are people that started with nothing and built something because they wanted to create the future. I just got to tell you another really cool day in my life. President Obama, during his years, held something called the Global Entrepreneurship Summit. And we would all gather to talk about entrepreneurship. And I was speaking at it with the president and a lot of other internet and tech, just entrepreneurs. But on the last day, President Obama decided to do a panel with Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook. And the White House told me, we want to feature women. We want to find 2 of the best women entrepreneurs in the whole world to feature. And I said, that'll be fascinating. I didn't make any recommendations because I just was too busy at the time. So I got there. This was at Stanford. I walked into the room. I looked up on the stage, and I'm going to show you the picture that I took. I was actually standing there crying. I am not kidding. Do you know who the 2 women in the entire world that were picked to sit between President Obama and Mark Zuckerberg? That's the girl from Egypt, and that's the girl from Peru I just told you about. It was amazing. Like I said, I stood there with tears in my eyes that they started with nothing in homes made of trash, and they worked so hard, these 2 girls, that they were picked to sit with the president and Zuckerberg. Anybody can achieve. You just need support, and you need a tool set. So I'm going to close by mentioning one other thing that we do. I am part of a nonprofit called the Unreasonable Group. And what we try to do is we try to solve the world's biggest problems through entrepreneurship. So we had this idea. And somebody asked me yesterday when I did a media interview, and I'm going to end with this. They said, what do you think of Vietnam and Vietnamese entrepreneurs? And I said very clearly, if I did not believe in the people in this room, I would not have flown 30 hours to be here. I'm here because I believe you guys can achieve anything you set out to do as an ecosystem. And your entrepreneurs can design the future. But when we talk about the next generation of entrepreneurs, and I see a lot of young people in this room, some people were telling us, we're questioning that generation. Are they entitled? Do they work hard enough? We believe in the next generation of entrepreneurs, but I am not a talk about it person. I am a very practical, don't tell me, show me. So we decided to show people. So we had a crazy idea. We thought this, what if we chartered a ship, filled it with entrepreneurs from all over the world, and sailed around the world showing entrepreneurs, the next generation, all the world's problems? The question was this, what would those entrepreneurs do? And we think they would solve them. So I know this is crazy, but we did this. That's the ship. By the way, that was our Australian stop. We took a ship, and we took entrepreneurs from all over the world, and we sailed around the entire planet, stopping in countries all over the world. We didn't hit Vietnam, but we hit Cambodia on this trip. And as we stopped, we told the entrepreneurs, look at all these countries, figure out what the problems are, and do something. And I could not be more amazed by the results. I'm going to do this really fast in the interest of time. These are some of our entrepreneurs in a village in Africa. But when we got to a part in Africa, I think I went past that. Hang on. Okay, no, I didn't. So let me do this one really quick. We found parts of the world, I think this might have come out of Southeast Asia, where women cannot cook meals for their own family because they don't have fuel. They don't have wood or kerosene. So they go to community kitchens and wait in line. And the community kitchens create black smoke that the women breathe all day. The women die and their babies die. When the entrepreneurs saw that, they said, this is ridiculous. So let me tell you what 2 of our companies did. The first one invented smokeless stoves. And they're so small and so cheap that every woman in every family can cook at home. They'd never made a meal in their own house before. It creates no smoke. Nobody dies of black smoke. Then another one of our entrepreneurs said, but it still needs wood, I'll do better. And you know what she created? She created, these are not them, I didn't have the right picture. She created solar stoves. You don't even need wood. You just, whenever the sun is out, you open your stove, the solar stove generates heat, and they can make food with no smoke and no fuel anymore. It's not only a matter of food, it's a matter of dignity. Those women used to be covered with black smoke all day, so everybody knew they were poor. They told me, everyone looks at me and they see the black smoke all over me and they stare at me because I'm poor. Now they have their dignity back and they have food back. When we got to other parts of the world, we met some deaf people, and the entrepreneur said, why doesn't somebody give them hearing aids? And in the part of the world they lived, we found out that the United Nations and the World Health Organization gave them hearing aids. But you know what's wrong? There's nowhere to buy a battery. So after 30 days, they all threw out their hearing aids. So you know what these young people did? We stood back to see what they would do. I'll tell you what they did. They started a company that invented solar power hearing aids. No more batteries anymore. These hearing aids charge all day in the sun and run all night. They cost 1/20th of any other hearing aid in the world, so these people can afford them. We've shipped thousands of these things all over the world. And when they found out that deaf people can't get a job in most of the world, guess in our factories are staffed, their factories, 100% with deaf workers. So they created a difference in the world. The last one I want to tell you is when we saw huts like this, where a little girl was saying that she never sees her father because he leaves in the morning before the sun, and when he comes home, it's dark, and they have no electricity. And she said, I live in a hut like that. I never get to see my father. I don't even really know what he looks like. And she wanted to learn to read, but no one can teach her because there's no light. So you know what one of our other startups did? They created solar lights. These panels sit on the roof all day in the African sun, and at night, when the family comes home, it shines all night, and they have light. These are families that have never had light or electricity ever in their lives. And I'm going to tell you something. This startup has now, I was really proud of this. We found out that we have now lit 65 million families in the world. 65 million families now have light and can read and see each other and can teach and can spend time together. Why? Because today's entrepreneurs said, we can make it better. It's amazing. They also created jobs. Who sells these lights? The entrepreneurs said, we should create jobs and create entrepreneurs. So people in the villages become entrepreneurs because they get to start a business selling the lights. So that's really what I wanted to share with you today. It doesn't matter where you start. And for the entrepreneurs in the room, I don't care if you don't know the answers, do something. Okay, the first step is the most important one. You might get it wrong, but we'll help you. That's what the ecosystem is for. The most important thing you could do is something instead of talking about it. Start to execute and do something. And I'm going to say for everybody in this room, there should be only two choices. Everybody in this room, you should either be an entrepreneur or help an entrepreneur. There should be no other choice. Thank you guys very much for having me today.